Hey Dane, how's your night been, man?
Great, great. I think the 4th of July has started early for some.
I think
Sounds
it.
like around town.
I think it's beyond Fourth of July, Dane. You ever have those moments when you wish it was like Christmas in July or Christmas in June? Um,
Yes.
Tonight's one of those nights, man. I started thinking as we
Yeah.
were prepping for this episode for months now. We have always said we've been blessed to interview coaches and players all across the league. But as you know, we're from Oklahoma. We're from the heart of Oklahoma. There's a special place in our heart for Oklahoma. That's Die Hard. That's
Yeah.
what we live and breathe. I remember my
Yeah.
favorite moment when I'm growing up, man. Many spots. I'm in my 30s now. I'll never forget when I was a kid. I remember when the first championship happened, and I'm sitting there watching Coach Bob come out and just he's crying like Drake's a little tyke at the time. I'm just watching all this happen like, oh my gosh, I want to be there one day. Went to my first game when I was in my 30s, man. It took that long to get there and haven't missed the game since. And there's a special place that
Yeah.
no one can deny but OU. What's been your favorite moment, Dane, in your
Oh
OU
man,
lifetime?
thinking back on those days where my family, they grew up watching everything Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly like any other family with brothers and a father, it was OU football. And I
Yep.
remember vividly the Boz coming out and playing. So
Oh
and
man,
Adrian Peterson. I mean,
man,
teams like that. Barry Switzer hanging half a hundred on somebody. You hear him
man.
say those kind of things. I mean, just the personalities that came through that school and help that organization do what they do and be on top for so long. I mean, we loved every minute of it. So
It's an organization, it's an institution, and then now the softball
yeah,
growing as rapidly
yeah,
as my daughters. They think of Oklahoma, which is awesome for softball, like we think of it for football and softball, right? So
mhm,
Dane,
yeah,
I am excited, man. We've been waiting for this one for a very long time. Got his own Oklahoma talk show. He works with Fox
yeah.
Sports, the voice of Oklahoma, whether it's sideline reporting during the football games or calling softball games. The man who is literally the voice of Oklahoma himself,
Yeah.
Mr. Chris Plank. Chris, how you doing, brother?
Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it, man. Pumped
Man,
to
Yeah,
it's
thank
talk.
you for coming on.
our
Yeah.
privilege, Chris. I see you all the time at the games, and I'm that crazy guy that shakes your hand, and you're like, "Okay,
Heck
dude,
yeah.
that's me."
Love it.
So,
I love it.
how's your?
Hey, at least you know I'm Chris. I'm usually mistaken for Toby, but
Oh no.
Toby's lost all that weight now, so no one it's good. I don't mind it at all. But yeah,
I
I'm
love.
it's grateful, man. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Awesome, Chris. I know
Yeah,
you're a busy man. You just got back and you're kind of, finally have a night off. So we'll respect that. There's some questions Dane and I have, Chris, from
Sure.
watching what you do that have made us
yeah,
do what we want to do. So we're going to
yeah.
run those questions past you. So, Dane, if you want to go ahead with question one, Dane.
Sure. We'll kind of just start this off, Chris, with our. We like to find out how long have you been doing what you do on radio, calling games
Mm-hmm.
and things like that for
Mm-hmm.
the not just Oklahoma but in general.
Yeah.
So I graduated from college in 97. And while I was in college, I started having the opportunity to do some things because I worked in the sports information department. And anyone that is looking for a way to really get in sports, go work in the media relations. It was sports information, now it's media relations, and I think it's even morphed into like communications, just period. It's a great way to get your foot in the door, and through that, I had a chance to call like some women's basketball games. Women's
Mhm.
basketball had just been restarted at the University of Tulsa. I did PA for volleyball and different events like that. So that's how I got my start. And then I graduated in 97 from TU, and I fully expected to just get hired on at ESPN and do Sports Center for the rest of my life. Didn't really happen. So it was hard to get a job in radio that could make ends meet. And so I
Yeah.
decided I was going to take a job in radio and not let the ends meet. And it was a labor of love. It was fun. It's challenging, but yeah, I started right away at 1430 in Tulsa. Don King hired me, and I guess, as you might say, kind of the rest is history. You go through
Yeah.
the corporate radio roller coaster, which is always
Yeah.
challenging, but I started doing afternoons, had a great run in
Yeah.
Tulsa. Moved down to Norman in 2015, and have started doing a mid-morning show and really enjoy it. We've got great leaders at our station, and somewhere along the way, people at Fox Sports Radio and Sirius XM felt, all right, we could use a guy like you. And it's really added on the sports talk side of
Mhm.
things to give me a lot of outlets, right? I
I
have a
love
lot of outlets. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the play-by-play and in like sideline reporting side, I mean, that was I had to do it early. I didn't think I was very good at it. Like I was talking about with women's basketball and things like that in high school or in college. But once I graduated, I had a chance to do some Cox Cable games. Was Cox Cable at the time. Did Jinx Trojan football for a couple of years, and it just kind of took off.
Man.
And it was really fun.
Chris, I tell you, man. So first and foremost, there's no question. I love that you do the radio, but you're a handsome fella. You know, a good looking guy. You got that Vince Vaughn thing going. I can see it. You know, little Kevin Bacon, Vince Vaughn. And so
I'd say about 30 pounds more than I need to be right now. But that's okay.
when you transition to that, because obviously, and I mean it, there's a personality. I think it's cool seeing you do these multifacets, and I love your show. I listen every day, man. I love it.
Thanks,
I know it's cracking me up a little beef. You're kind of pleasantly starting with Baker. Should I talk to him when I get? I love it. You know. So is there something that stood out to you, honestly, man, when you look at radio versus any of the visual aspects, as you do both? Did you stick to radio more because you had more of an open platform? It was you could control it more, or what made you go in the direction of maybe radio versus maybe play-by-play, or just the radio itself versus visuals? What was the drawing factor there?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of things. I think so when I got out of college, they weren't hiring people out of college. You had to have 3 or 4 years as a sports guy in like Boise or somewhere that was a smaller market. Yeah. Some people might say Tulsa, because it was a little bit of a smaller market, but they weren't hiring people fresh out of college, and there weren't many jobs. And I got married, so we weren't really in a place that, my wife at the time was down with moving somewhere. So radio almost became like a fallback, right? I still got to work in sports. And it was a regular job. I was working 2 or 3 jobs just because I wanted to do radio. And that's kind of the path.
I love it.
That was laid out. And it was, I mean, again, there's a hell of a lot more money in TV at the time. But for me, it's just there weren't those opportunities. And there was an opportunity in radio. And it just, I was able to, I heard Tony Schiavone say it one time, and it was so true. When you're in he was a great wrestling mind and does incredible work on podcasts now. He's like, well, how it is. You piece enough stuff together to make sure that you're making ends meet, because financially, Josh, with just, doing the radio show, it wasn't working. We were in, as Dusty Rhodes would say, hard times. It was hard times in the Plank household. So it was just, I loved it though, man. I loved sports. I loved playing sports, but I was always terrible at it. So I would always talk about it, and we would always have debates. And I grew up just outside of St. Louis, and we weren't big college football fans, but man, we were big baseball and NFL fans. And it was always it to me. It's all I ever wanted to do. It's all I know how to do. So I'd be in big trouble if I ever lost that job. But so, yeah, it's just, to me, radio was, I got hired. I was legit making minimum wage, and then, got an opportunity to get a little bit more and a little bit more. And eventually my wife was like, okay, you can keep doing it. So it was really just, I didn't want to be in a position where I was moving all over the country. I wanted to say, hey, I can do this in Tulsa, or I can do this in Oklahoma. And that's pretty much how it ended up being radio the whole way. Oh, and I still had a job. So that helped too.
Yeah.
I love it, Chris. I think, man, I'm glad I mean this, because like I said, and that's where when I first put this together, we looked to you a lot. We had a gentleman named Scott Boland, shout out, and a guy named Jeff Lutz. He's a local guy here in Kansas. And we started looking at what you do. We're like, man, from a different standpoint, we coach and we have the, other jobs and stuff, but we wanted to do kind of what you do in maybe a more just, smaller fashion. We've looked to you for a long time. I didn't know this, that you grew up in St. Louis. So are you a Cardinals fan, and maybe at the time a Rams fan back in the day?
No. This is, so and I love my family to death. They're some of the great, motivators and supporters in my life, but they're all Cardinal fans, and we were Cardinal season ticket holders growing up. But somehow I was a Dodgers fan, and we never were really. In fact, I was watching the Dodgers actually play well for a change before we started taping. I'll probably go back and the bullpen will have blown it, but it was weird. It was cool because we had the Blues and we had the Cardinals, and it was really affordable to go to games. So whenever I was a kid, we could go for, $6 and sit out in the bleachers, $6 to $8. And we would do that. When I was in high school, date nights would be, well, I never had any dates. Friends of mine and family outings would be at ball games, right? We would go and we would sit in the bleachers. When I graduated and I came back, the one summer I came back to home in Woodruff, Illinois, we'd go to games all the time. So I don't know why. I don't know why, but I would root for the Cardinals, but whenever I was looking over the box scores, I was in depth on the Dodgers. And then when I was reading the AAA and the AA reports, it was always about the Dodgers. So in a town that was hungry for, when I was growing up, it was two Cardinals, football and baseball, but eventually became the Rams. I love the Blues, but that was it, man. I was Dodgers and I was Raiders and I was Lakers. We never had a basketball team, but it was really cool, because I lived in a small town that was on the Illinois side, the right side of the river, as I like to say, but it was close enough to where you had that big sports feel to it. So we might have like a short trip to go watch a high school game. We had just as short of a trip to go watch a Major League Baseball game and see the best of the best. Like I was 20 minutes away from seeing Tony Gwynn or seeing, at Franklin Stubbs or whoever I was rooting for, the Dodgers at the time.
It's crazy, Chris. Before Dane takes three, I mean, no joke, Chris. I grew up a diehard Cardinals fan in Kansas. That was my thing. So that connection of what you had, Cardinals, Blues, OU, and then Sacramento Kings. That's my four teams, right? So it's that caught me, So
well, and you got to remember too. For me, like college football wasn't something that I truly grasped the enormous nature of it until I got to college.
Yeah.
So when I was growing up, the biggest college football story we had for me in our hometown was that Craig Hentrick was a kicker at Marquette, and he was officially kicking off the season for Notre Dame. He was going to be the kicker that kicked the opening kickoff against Virginia. So that was all we had. I didn't really truly grasp college football and what it meant to people until I got here in '93. Oklahoma was a team that would come in and just beat the snot out of Missouri every year. That's who Oklahoma was. And then I got down here to Tulsa at the time, and it became, all right, okay, this is what it's all about.
I love it, Dan. Man,
that's an amazing. I mean, it's through that whole journey too. You've gotten to call some amazing games. You got to see a lot. Now, a lot of that shaped how you do and you approach the games now. Thinking back to all those exciting times that you've had in the past, does that kind of help you with what you do now? As far as keeping the energy whenever you're watching a game? Or
I just, it's funny. I'll work some crazy shifts. I mean, I'll just give you guys, I'm not like boohooing. I'm just telling you, I'm going to do whatever it takes to put food on my family's table. And then in that, tomorrow I have a 9 to noon radio show. Thursday night I'm on 9 to noon, and then I'm on 1 to 5 a.m. Then I'm back on 9 to noon, and then I'm on 4 to 8 a.m. on Saturday, and then I'm on 8 to 11 a.m. You might say that's crazy because but to me, I'm like, I mean, it's sports talk, right? I mean, it's literally, I'm getting to sit there and I'm getting to talk sports for 3 hours a day with my local show and a great co-host and Josh Helmer. I'm getting to do it, 4 hours overnight in a. Nothing is cleared more in sports radio than overnight radio. Every radio station has this on. Same thing on Saturday morning. So when you talk about just kind of those moments that fuel you and keep you coming back, for me, it's just an overall passion for just the competitiveness, for sports, for games, for everything. I love the intricacy, the stupid arguments we're getting into now with football. I love the debates about, hey, should you build through the transfer? Can you build through the transfer portal? Is NIL sustainable? And it's like, I love drilling deep on these things. So I've had great moments that keep bringing me back, right? There's nothing better than being on the sidelines for OU Texas. There's not many things better than being up in the press box and calling Oklahoma playing in Oklahoma City for a national championship game. But by God, Dane, I love sports. And so as long as I have a chance to talk about it, that's gonna keep the juices flowing, keep it high.
Oh yeah. Through all that,
I
was just saying, through all that, do you have a maybe top 3 games that you've called on the radio or been on the sideline for that you can kind of share?
Yeah, I mean, I'll always say there's going to be your first ever road trip that you take, I think, is always going to be a memorable one.
Mhm.
And I remember every first road trip that I took with every team that I've ever traveled with. But none are better than 2011 going to Florida State, playing in Tallahassee for Oklahoma. And that was a night. Florida State they thought they were back, and they were feeling it with Jimbo Fisher and EJ Manuel. Oh gosh, they had a really good running back like Sean Green. Does that ring a bell? But they were good. And we went down there, and Kenny Stills had the catch, and we beat him. And it was, I still to this day, that was a top 5 atmosphere of anything I've been a part of. And some might say, well, they didn't win the conference that season, and it was a tough year. I don't care. That night in Tallahassee, OU, Florida State, one of the greatest environments I've ever been a part of. Tennessee in 2015, when we went down there, 15 or so, was it 15? When we went there in 15, that was awesome. It was just third down for what, and the speakers blaring. That was incredible. That was amazing, and it was an amazing game. When we beat Notre Dame, when we went to Notre Dame and beat them in South Bend, again, being a St. Louis kid, growing up where everyone loved Notre Dame, that was a moment that I'll never forget. And Dusty was still on the sidelines with us, and Teddy was down on the sidelines with us. And it was just, I think all three of us really embraced that moment. That was before they went with turf field at South Bend. That was before the big screen. So those road trips, man, those were pretty special. But I mean, I could keep going. The Texas game that we lost when Kyler led the comeback, that was amazing. Okay. I know we lost the game, but 2018, when we went there to Dallas and we fell behind and Kyler brought us back, when he turned the corner on that touchdown run, boys, I mean, I was running, losing my mind, jumping up and down. I mean, there was someone new that had just started working at Oklahoma that I just met on the sidelines. I just met her. It's like, oh, it's nice to meet you. And then like 2 minutes later, the Murray play happens, and she sees me running, screaming, high-fiving. It was great.
I love it, man. I love it.
Softball wise, though, I mean, because I feel like those are them. I mean, first ever trip we took was to Vegas. Right? It was amazing. It was amazing. I got to be there when Jocelyn Allo broke her all-time home run record. 2016, we went to Fullerton. And later that year, they played Alabama in the College World Series. In 2016, we went to Fullerton and played Alabama in one of the best games I've ever seen. And it was, I think it might have been a Shea Knighton home run. It was like a 1-zip game. And it was amazingly well pitched. So, there's all the World Series and Super Regionals, the trip to Auburn in 2017. There's so many great moments, and it's just, I feel like they're my kids. You're asking me to pick my favorite kid, David. It's tough because they're all special. But you know what? I'll say this on all of them, and this might be considered, corny, but to me, the coolest part is just seeing on game day all the people whose work goes unnoticed. Right? There's not going to be a feat. Well, there might be now because we have so many different entities covering games, but you don't usually get a feature on what, Jason Ferris did on the field and how it's in its best shape that it's been in. You don't usually get a feature on the equipment guys and the work they went through and setting up the locker room. You don't get a feature on the, the grad assistants or the marketing gurus or the, whoever coordinates, everything to make sure it happens. So for me, game day, as I've gotten older and have been around a little bit more, it really makes me appreciate everything that goes into game day beyond just the game.
Wow.
And whenever you guys are prepping for games, going on the road or even a home game, typically how many people do you travel with as far as researchers, setup and all that?
Oh man, come on, Dane. We do our own research. Let's go, baby. But
I love that.
For the radio network, we have Toby, the play-by-play guy, Teddy, the analyst. Toby has a spotter and a statistician, Dennis Kelly and Andrew Shepard, Stats Kelly and Andrew that he likes. So he likes to have a stats guy and a spotter. We have an engineer, Drake, that travels with us. And then Gabe and I down the sideline. So we travel 7 people. We roll pretty deep as far as radio network is concerned. Our TV side rolls pretty deep. They'll they used to, because it used to be on site. I don't know if we're doing as many on site, but our prep is always fun because Gabe and I do a radio show together throughout the week, usually during football season. So we get to talk a lot. Teddy and I work at the same radio station. Toby and I work at the same radio station. We'll constantly share notes. Toby's one of the best researchers and writers I've ever been around in my life. So there is, there might not be this set, hey, that's our researcher, but we have a statistician that's a historical crazy person, right? Dennis Stats Kelly can tell you who won the 1908 Bedlam game. So we've got a really good crew that kind of helps to make sure that we don't leave any stone unturned. And I'll add to it, it's just how cool it is that Oklahoma allows it, and there's not a lot of restrictions put on us. It's not like, hey, don't you talk about this and don't you talk about that.
Right.
No, it's you see it, talk about it.
It's fair game. Yeah.
It's really cool. Definitely. It's really cool.
I think, Chris, I remember, man, before I transitioned to Fork, like I said, I've seen you so many times. It was always cool to me how you're worldwide known. You have the radio show, like I said, all things you do. But I'll never forget, it was funny. We were playing the game. We were opener, and we were against Tulane. We're sitting there, and we're playing Tulane, and you're sitting there, and you're sitting there, and like you're drenched, man. They got the fans on, and you got the crew on. You're like, hey guys, about to give you the play-by-play, and you're starstruck. Like it could have been any team, but you're just so excited. You can tell that you just love what you're doing. You are just caught up in the moment, and you just love it. You live it. It's cool. So
I hope in everything that I do, I hope there's a couple of things that come across. Well, maybe one. It's not BS. It's not some act. I'm not gonna, as soon as the show's over, go, oh my gosh, I don't have to talk about sports again. I've got my pastor, Mike. He always is like, hey, I just want to let you know, don't feel like you need to be obligated to talk about sports. And I'm like, I think you understand, man. It's like that's not a job, right? This is this is what I would do regardless. So I appreciate that because I hope the passion comes out in that it's not fake, it's not created. There might be times when I'm tired, but who cares? I'm calling games. I'm a part of it. There might be times that you're sick, but come on, man. You got to heal someone in time for a football game whenever it's OU Texas.
That's right. Yes,
but it's legit, man. It comes from a place of love and always has.
I love it. When you look at the next, because you obviously, I feel like every year you get called up to do more things, right? As you're just now known more as a voice. So we're looking at the next 12 months. Obviously, I know we'll see you in a few months. We already have our season tickets. We're ready to go. But what's the next 12? What's the next 12 months look like for you, man? For you as a broadcaster, the whole shebang, So
I'm a radio guy at heart, so you're always waiting to get fired, which is one great thing. Which is one great thing in radio. But it's true. This is a really good chill time, right? It really is. For me, it's an opportunity to do some different things. I've started, I don't necessarily know if I want to say it's my show, but I've been hosting a show on Sirius XM College Sports Radio from 8A to 11A Central Time that has really become like a passion project. I love it. My 9 to noon show, our station, I feel like, has some incredible momentum right now, and it's hard to win in the Arbitron/Nielsen game now, but it's just from a word of mouth and a social media thing. I don't think I've ever been a part of anything like this, so it's getting a lot of my attention. But I've got 3 kids, and I blinked and my son was off to college. So I've got a 14-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old daughter. I've got a great wife, so I'm just trying to spend as much time as I possibly can with them. We were at the softball celebration a couple weeks ago, and Coach Gasso, like literally, we're just kind of taking pictures and doing that thing, and Coach Gasso made it a point to just tell hey, thanks to my wife and my kids. We appreciate letting Chris travel, and I didn't even think of it that way because I'm like, Coach, they got a house. They've got all this. They got to be. But I thought it was just really cool. And then in that, the coach even called me a couple nights ago, said, "You're getting time at home, right?" I'm like, "Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I absolutely am." So
I love it.
And then my son is he just finished his freshman year at West Point. In fact, he was just texting me before he's officially graduated as a freshman or whatever the terminology is. So he's no longer a plebe. So he's coming home here in a little bit, and I'm gonna spend as much time with him as I can. My 14-year-old is into golf. In fact, right before we came on, I was a little bit late because she said, "Hey, I want to go chip some balls in the backyard."
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
heck yeah, let's go.
No question.
So it's so in the short term, it's getting all that family time I can possibly get, because that you can't get that back.
Right.
In the long term, I want to keep all my jobs. I love them all. I want to keep doing sidelines. I want to keep doing softball. I want to do the fill-ins when they have me on women's basketball, or if they need me on TV. I want to keep doing the Big 12 and the SEC shows on Sirius XM. I want to keep doing when Fox Sports and Mad Dog need me. So I almost feel like I'm a sales guy, and my opportunity for commission is when I'm offered shifts. And so I'm always like, all right, what do I need to do to get that shift or that shift? So it's really just kind of making sure I keep the schedule flexible, but in that flexibility, I'm getting as much family time as I can.
Yeah. I'll say this, Chris, before I do rapid. There's no question. When I said, because Zane and I, we do all our own promoting. We have Edward. We got the crew of 3 now. We don't roll 7 deep like y'all do to Applebee's. Y'all roll 7. It's cool. We got 3 deep now. But when I put this out, it was interesting. I said, hey, we started talking to you about this like last year. And I said, hey, guys, Chris Plank's coming on the first day, man. And again, our little world, we had 30,000 like inquiries and hits. Like Chris coming on, like it was just cool. Like how popular you are, man. You are a legend. So I don't think you have anything to worry about, man. Honestly, from just the word of mouth, I think you're fine, man. Honestly,
the funniest thing about it is it's just, and maybe it's kind of a lesson to any of those that are getting into radio. Whenever I started, it was a much different world, right? It was a much different world. And we're going back, gosh, almost 30 years now. And when I started, it's just, you had to do whatever you could to get a chance. You had to take all these shifts, and, you're running the board at midnight for a NASCAR race and at a 5-hour rain delay or whatever, you're doing whatever you can. But I wish, in all my paranoia about having a job whenever I was 22, 23, 24, I wish I would have taken more time to enjoy it. I wish I would have stepped back and said, dude, calm down. I mean, if this thing falls apart, you at least got to say you worked in sports for 2 or 3 years, before you had to go start selling insurance or working at my at the time, father-in-law's financial firm. So it's just, I have that. That's kind of like the one little nagging thing at me. And I try to impart anytime I talk to young broadcasters. Like Toby will have me in to talk to his class. Just, dude, I wish I would have smelled the roses a little bit more. But then in the same vein, if 48-year-old Chris would go back in time and talk to 23-year-old Chris, 23-year-old Chris would probably say, shut up, old man. I need the money. What are you doing right now? And plus we got a game. We get to go cover a Jinx game tomorrow night. You stifle yourself. So it's a labor of love. It's a lot of hard work, but it's also, it's all worth it, man. It's been a blast.
Yeah. I love the, like you said, you were literally living a passion, and there's no question. I know, like you said, sometimes those shifts, and it's impressive to be able to sell that. There's a lot of salesmanship that goes into radio. And again, I can't say enough, Chris, that you do a great job. Speaking of sales, there's a little thing that Dane and I do. We sell this every episode. This is funny. Yeah. So, I told you, I gave you kind of at least a hint as we're prepping notes and all that about everything we do except rapid. Every episode, they're like, you have to have it. We have fans send us questions like, you got to ask them this. So these are some cultivated questions, Chris. Okay. Just knowing a little bit about you, you have to spit it out. I will tell you, the winner gets their lunch paid for by the loser. So if I win, Dane owes me lunch and back and forth, right?
Okay.
So
Sounds good.
I've gotten like 6 taquitos so far from Dane from Quick Trip. Nice. So I'm doing pretty well. So first
taquitos
question.
Are good.
Yeah, man. So first question of the 2, you have to spit one out. Are you going with hot sauce or baby back ribs barbecue sauce?
Hot sauce.
Dang, Dane. Okay, so
missed on that one. Bye.
You missed that one. Okay.
But it's got to be a specific hot sauce. It's got to be Frank's. It's got to be Frank's.
Okay.
As I'm getting older, I'm starting to have like the indigestion. Yeah. So I've got to be smarter about it. But Frank's doesn't quite have the kick. My brother-in-law, no lie, guys, my brother-in-law and I used to get the hottest things possible. And now anymore, we're like, what were we even thinking? So yeah, but it is Frank's. It is Frank's all the way.
This part brought to you by Frank's. No, I'm kidding. I'll get you sponsorship, Chris. I got
Give me sponsorship on that. Let's go.
Wear that baby on the Raiders cap. Next one, man. So you're jamming. You're on just you hitting some golf balls. You're doing your thing. You're throwing on some music on the Spotify. Are you going for Poison or Def Leppard?
Oh, that's tough. I've seen them both in concert. They were in concert together. I took my wife.
Yeah.
Poison or Probably Def Leppard. Probably Def Leppard. Yeah.
Dang, I'm 1 for 2,
Probably.
Dane. What you
Well,
got, man?
and also at Def Leppard, you got a little bit more of a catalog of hits, maybe.
Yeah.
But Poison had some bangers, man. Every Rose Has Its Thorn.
Oh yeah.
Man.
Yeah. That's a tough one.
I'm 0 for 2, Dane. I'm 0 for 2. What you got, Dane? Did you get that one right?
I got the Def Leppard. It's hard to go away from like he said, for their whole catalog, the length
myriad
of
of hits.
Yeah.
Myriad of hits. And a one-armed drummer.
Yeah, he's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So next one. So this is something, because I obviously it was cool seeing you guys get back from a recent trip, and I love the photos, seeing you with your family. So you're picking an activity, like you're in charge on vacation day. They're like, Dad, you got to pick one of these two things for us to do. Are you going with wakeboarding or parasailing?
Oh, now do I have to do this? Everyone has to do it?
Yep, you have to do it too.
Okay, so we have my wife and I are paranoid flyers. So we drive everywhere. I somehow managed to fly with the teams everywhere I go. So I'd probably go wakeboarding.
Okay.
We're not massive on the water. Well, we love the beach and we love the lake, but I'm not a boat guy. I'm not a I don't have a boat. I'm more like a pontoon and just let me float. But if I have a choice, I'm probably a wakeboarder. Parasailing, I think, would scare me. I'd be having so much fun. I'd probably lose my mind. And I'll have these moments where I kind of forget where I am. I'm like, and then I'm sure it would register. I'm like, holy, you know what? I am flying
1,000
right
feet in the
now,
air. Yeah.
in the air. And the only thing between me and the water is the water. So I'd probably go the safe route, wakeboarding. And I've noticed this too, guys. I get really worried about my kids doing anything. I mean, I freak out about them on roller coasters. So probably wakeboarding. Yeah.
I am 0 for 3, Dan. Did you get that one right or no?
No.
I'm not good at rapid fire, by the way, either. I just
you're good. No, you're good. You're doing it right.
You're doing great. Doing perfect.
We've added the betting element. So I literally like to see who gets closer. So next one. I know you kind of said, well, again, just researching over the years and getting to know your personality and all that. Next one. Are you more terrified of spiders or snakes?
Snakes.
Got one right. Finally, man. Dang. Okay. Dan, how about you?
I am the spider killer in my house. And I live in the country. I live in the country. Well, I mean, I call it the country. People that live in the country would be like, bro, you live in the city. But we had a snake last year. My son graduated from Booker T. Washington. My whole family left and went on down there. I was coming second down. I had a show to do and I was cleaning some things up. So I was leaving on my own. As I start to leave, a massive black snake goes right across the front of, like, I can show you this garage door right there. I'm literally in my garage. So this massive snake goes across it. And I'm like, I'm froze. I don't know what to do. So I go outside. And it gets outside. And it's outside. I go outside after running in here screaming like a little girl, and I grab a rake, and I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Throw there like a javelin at it.
Right. So I'm trying to like hit it. I'm trying to grab it. And if there would have been a video camera out here, we'd all be rich, because I fell and then the thing started coming towards me and I'm rolling around. And then so to add to the story, a week later, my Frenchie, a little Frenchie bulldog, drags the snake out of a shrub and just is tearing the thing all around. So I'm scared to death of this. Meanwhile, this little Frenchie bulldog is just tearing this snake up. So R.I.P. to that black snake. I think finally. My wife may have just thrown it back out in the woods. But yeah, it was. I don't mess with snakes, man. They are. Whenever I went on a field trip when I was a little kid, and they took us to show us snakes, and they were feeding it. And they were feeding it a mouse, bro. I passed out. Yeah, I passed out while they were feeding it. So I don't do snakes.
So somewhere on somebody's Ring camera, there's a picture of Chris doing the whole "This is Sparta" thing with a rake.
Yeah, I got a rake up in the air. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's like and whenever I went after it, it just came at me and then it disappeared. So no snakes for me, but I can handle spiders for some reason every day of the week.
I love it. So no, I actually got one. Dan, I had that one. I really did. So
Yeah, I
Dan,
got
did you have that
snakes on
one?
there. Yeah, yeah,
So
I got
I'm
snakes.
one
Yeah.
for four so far. Last one, based off of your loves and just the time frame of your generation. So you're sitting down, Chris. You got a rare day off. Nothing's going on. Pop up through some old Netflix movies. You're gonna watch a show, classic. Are you turning on RoboCop or Short Circuit?
RoboCop.
Yeah.
Dang.
But here's the thing.
Which RoboCop?
Yeah.
One.
Yeah,
Only one.
Original.
And as a matter of fact, I don't know if I've seen two, but didn't it like keep going? Didn't they do like
Yeah.
5
Yeah, they're
RoboCops,
like-
I think?
Yeah.
Then they rebooted, and
Yeah.
it's completely
Dang.
different.
Here's
Well,
the thing though, Josh. Here's the thing. Is you could also say Short Circuit, because I never get time to myself, right? There's never going to be a time where I sit back and I'm like, all right, Netflix, what you got? Because it's going to be me and my 9-year-old, or it's going to be me and my 14-year-old, or it's going to be me and my wife. So if that's the case, then it has to be Short Circuit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It has to.
Yeah.
By proxy. So yeah, I see what you're
So
saying.
I've started staying up really late because, well, I've been doing the college baseball post-game shows. But when the girls are out of school, I always tell myself, I'm getting up early. I'm going to start working out. What do I end up doing? I do not get up early. I do not work out. I sleep as late as I possibly can to get to work. And it was really bad last week. But I started. Have you guys ever used Tubi before, the app for
the rabbit hole? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's got the worst movies you could ever imagine on it.
But they're so good though. Yeah.
But they're so bad they're good. I watched Meet Wally Sparks one night, and I look up and it's like 2 a.m. I'm like, why am I watching this? There was a movie with Artie Lang and Norm Macdonald where they were garbage men. I watched that. I've watched Beer League. I mean, I'll watch RoboCop, but my true love is like old, just terrible, like 80s, 90s movies that are supposed to be comedies. Absolutely. Hilarious.
I love it, man.
Can't
He's
stop
right up my
watching
alley. Well, Dane, I went 1 for 4, so I guess we're tied on that one, or 1 for 5, Dane. So we're off the hook. You know, owe me lunch, man. I'm sitting here thinking about this snake though, man. I just want to see some footage. Like somebody find that. Somebody out there and all your paparazzi stuff, find that.
I called my wife right away and I said, if we had any recording material anywhere, we would be so rich right now. I mean, I don't know if people get rich off viral videos or not, but it was just in my mind. It was as foolish as I could look. And then the next day, there was a snake going across the road. So I thankfully haven't, knock on wood, I haven't seen one in a minute around here, but it's no, don't mess with the snakes, man.
They don't mess the Chris. I love it, Dana. I can't even land that plane, Dana.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Good luck.
Yeah, and it all matters when you catch them too. But with spiders, you can prepare for spiders. You see them so much, but snakes,
right?
Man, nope,
not at all. Man. Can't do it.
So that evens me up, Josh. We're even. Nobody's owed lunch now, so.
Well, fair enough, Dane. Well, I'll give you the last question then, Dane, to give you a treat, man.
All right. On this one, Chris, we call this the open mic portion. We kind of open the floor up to our guests to kind of over their careers, whether it's softball, sports, music, from the time they started to where they're at now. Is there a mantra or a philosophy you've kind of carried along with you to kind of keep you motivated, keep you pushing forward, that you can kind of share with, like you say, some of the younger broadcasters that are coming up?
Yeah, it was interesting. You had on the list that you guys sent me, and I had asked my wife about this because one of them you had talked about the biggest influences in my career, and I was thinking a lot. I'm like, well, who would you? I asked my wife. I'm like, we've been together for this is our 16th year of marriage, right?
Oh, congrats!
And we have 2 daughters. I have a son from a previous marriage, but I'm like, who would you say? I mean, who would you guess? And she's like, probably some people at TU, right? So to answer your question, I kind of wanted to just talk about the influences in my career.
Yeah, definitely.
And then in that, how important it is for everyone to take something from just about anyone that they cross paths with. And let me explain.
Of course,
definitely.
When I started at Tulsa, I didn't know S from S, right? That's what one of my bosses saying. You don't know, you know what about you know what, and they were right. But like Don Tomkowski was the media relations director who hired me. Bruce Howard was the radio guy who I was around a lot, and he gave me opportunities to do things like go do stats for him. He gave me opportunities to go on road trips and spot for him, and those were invaluable. He was also the guy whenever I said, "Hey, Bruce, when I do radio, I want to have a gimmick. I want to be Dr. Plank. I'm going to be the sports doctor, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to fix I'm going to be the doctor." And he looked at me and goes, "Be you. Don't, don't try to be anyone or anything else. Just be who you are, and then decide from there whether or not you need a gimmick." But so, I took pieces of advice on that front. When I started at 1430, Don King, who hired me, was always, hey, get active in the community. Know your high school teams. Yeah, play the hits, right? Know what people want to talk about, and in knowing what they want to talk about, know what you're talking about. It was invaluable information. And just when you're in a city, when you move, I mean, you guys will probably experience this at some point, and maybe anyone that's listening will too. You've got to immerse yourself in your community. And in Tulsa, that was a little bit harder because you had 80 different high schools. But from where my kids went, I made sure I was there, right? So I'm here in Norman, Oklahoma. I actually live in Goldsby. My kids go to Washington. What's up? State champs in football and baseball this year. Let's go.
Shout out.
But I'm there at every game I can be at, right? I want to know everything about my community, my teams. And at the time it was for covering them, but for now it's okay, I know if that kid's around my daughter, I don't like that, but you just want to know everything about him. So I learned that from Don. Michael Del Giorno came into 1430 and took over, and he taught me confidence. Now, it was a confidence that was a little over the top sometimes, but I learned how to be a confident speaker. Don Christie came in and he taught me you got to do your thing. You got to do your job, like the Bill Belichick mindset, all this other stuff. You got a job to do, and leave all that personal stuff at the door. That's something that I learned a lot about. I went to Norman. I learned how to be like a real man from watching how Kenny Mossman handled his job and how Toby Rowland handles his job. You learn from that. I learned from Randy LaFoon, who was an impact on my career when he bought our radio station and brought me in. And it was just a great relationship. And then I'm 48 years old and I'm still learning from people today. So you have all these, and some of those influences aren't just going to be, face to face. It's not going to be people you cross paths with. It's going to be people you listen to, people you watch, people who you follow on Twitter, or you follow on Instagram, or whatever. These people have an influence on you. Now, some of those you got to choose how much you allow them to influence you. But in the same vein, you can learn a lot about play-by-play, like I did growing up listening to Jack Buck, and then having the opportunity to listen to Vince Scully and to learn from Toby Rowland. These are the things that make you better. So, in my path, and I don't know, Dane, I don't know, Josh, how many, want to be in media. I don't know how many radio people are listening, but I think it's a life lesson beyond just that.
Yeah, definitely.
You can learn something, never stop learning, but in that same vein, always feel like you can take something. Like I'll use this as an example. We've when we moved out here, we started going to a new church because it was closer to us. And I've learned so much from these incredible men that I'm around every day, the Jake Clary's, Trevor Anderson's, and, Adam and all. And I just see these guys doing life, and I'm like, I want to be more like that. So it's just, I feel like that, there's never going to be a time where you stop learning, or you stop being influenced, or you stop getting better at what you do. The only thing where maybe that doesn't work is sports, because Father and Mother Time, they're undefeated. And eventually you can work and be the best you can be, but suddenly you're 40 and your back doesn't work like it used to, or you've thrown 8,000 innings and your arm isn't the same. But guys, I have such a passion for flawless execution. I have such a passion for 100% customer satisfaction. That second part, it's not possible. That first part absolutely is. And it's something that just always feel like you are an open book, and be an open book to people. And I think, I could sit here and we could do another hour on all the mistakes that I've made in this process. And I would hope people can learn from that. But, find your passion, find someone that is passionate about it, and learn from them. And that that's going to take you a long way. And it helped me. I mean, I just listed like 9, 12 people that
it's
were
awesome.
impactful on my life. And I've left about 30 out. I even mentioned Coach Gasso. You know, I had never traveled with a women's team full time until I traveled with softball in 2016. I mean, I didn't know. How different was it? I travel with baseball. Baseball, like everything goes. Suddenly get softball, it's a little different world. Not anything bad, but just hey, you know, these are 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old women. This is a women's coaching staff. I'm some 40-year-old dude that's coming to be like, hey, I'm your play-by-play guy, and I'm going to be in your face all the time. But it was awesome, right? And they embraced me, and I learned a lot. It's made me a better girl dad. It's made me a better presenter of how we cover women's sports. So listen, like I told you guys, I could ramble on all day about.
No, it's good. We love it, man.
Just life lessons and radio lessons and radio advice, some that maybe you shouldn't take. But I also know that I'm always, when I don't allow myself to zombie scroll through Instagram reels, I'm always trying to learn as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
I think Chris, you said.
I was going to say, and on to that, you know, like you said, let your personality shine through it and learn from the people that, you know, you kind of idolize. I mean, I do my daughter's play-by-play and stuff like that. And I've taken a tremendous amount from listening to some of your stuff. And,
thanks, dude.
You know, to kind of let your personality, don't just do X's and O's and try to keep them with the game. You let your personality come through and you're more endearing to your audience. And that's a great lesson I learned from you. So thank you for that.
And I would add to it, there's people that don't like that, and that's fine.
Right.
But to those people, it's not like you're giving the wrong score. It's not like you're calling the wrong game. You're still giving them the nuts and bolts of what they need and what they want. And that's been, you know, I'll have someone that they'll get mad about shout. It's like, why are you even doing 30 inning shout outs? Well, because it's cool, right? It's cool to hear how many people are listening. It means a lot to the administration to be like, wow, there's people listening in New Zealand. It proves what we're doing matters to people. And
definitely.
It's not like we're suddenly not calling what's going on the field. We got that. But you also, there's more to a game than just the score. There's every little minute. And there's everything that led up to it. And I love being able to tell those stories because I think they're incredibly important.
I think Chris and Dan will attest to this. Dan and I talk probably 4 or 5 hours a day off and on, like 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, you know, prepping stuff. Well, that's really, awesome. I'd say probably about 2 hours a day now because we do it like late at night. We usually do it like 7 to 11, right? So I'm never quiet. Like I never set up. But I'm listening to you, right? I have like 6 pages of notes. I'm just making notes and looking through this. I think like everything you said, man, it goes back to there's first of all, there's a passion. You mentioned the community as a whole. That's one thing we're big on. We've locally make it a point 5-6 times a month. We showcase a local athlete, a local coach, right? Like you said, hey, what are they doing over here in the suburb in Derby? What are they doing over here in Wichita? What are they doing over here in this county, right? Like you said, I think that stood out to me about, hey, making sure you know your area, you know the worldwide scene, you know the scope of this large juggernaut of Oklahoma, but to bring up a local team, that stands out to me more than anything else. Like knowing your spectrum, knowing who's listening, knowing what's around you, knowing what's the next level of talent. That's something I'll take away, Chris. That'll probably be my number one thing. What I learned, many things, I'll take that the most. You know.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's not. It's just it's time, and it's making it important. I want to be able to. I want to be able to tell stories from a spot and a position of knowledge and understanding. Well, I'm not going to be able to tell my story about Washington High School and how much I love it and how great it is for my kids if I'm not going to games or if I don't know what's going on. When I was the Jinx, I went my play-by-play roles in Tulsa whenever we were on the Buzz in KKC, went Jinx, Holland Hall, and Bixby. Now, if I'm not, talking to coaches or if I'm not, well, obviously at the games to call them, but if you're not, you're not immersed in the community. If you don't talk to people and if you don't shake hands at games, I want to know what's going on. I'm a nosy person, but B, I want to know what's going on because you never know where one of those stories is something that can, enrich a broadcast or, tie more people in to what you're doing. So I love that part of this job. It can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming because it's like, wow, I heard this story and I heard that story. Do I need to talk that? But if you just, take every little piece of it and like, yeah, it's a really cool story. And that's it. Not everything has to be some 5-minute soliloquy. Everything can be, damn, that's a really cool story, man. And then the other one is like, I need to tell that story. Right. And so that's part of being in your community. It's part of understanding the dynamic of that tie between the passion for, athletics and the passion for community and the passion for, obviously just sports in general and success. You want to know what's going on, and you want to make sure that those stories are told.
We heard a similar, little, not the same, but we were talking to, you know the name Phil Hendry. We're talking to him.
Yeah, of course.
Legend. We had him on a while back. Yeah, a while back.
You had Phil Hendry on?
Yeah, we had him on. I'll send you the episode, man.
Did he do all of his voices? Well,
I'll save it for the track. I'll send it to you.
Okay. Yeah, he talked about a few of them.
Okay, all right. And he was one of my favorites.
I've got him. I'll send you the link. But he talked about, hey, it's funny that you said the same things as far as like in sports world, right? You got entertainment news now broadcasting over here, what you're doing in sports. Hey, being yourself. There's a thing about not trying to be what you're not, right? And that's why people flock to you, man. It's crazy that different world, probably never even listened to it, the same spectrum of the universe, but you're over here like the wisdom of why you've been so successful and why you continue to be at the top of your game. It's like, hey, don't be afraid to make your brand stick out. We tell our athletes that, the musicians that come on, the local kids, the local coaches, it just goes on and on about there's a genuine love for being who you are. People flock to genuine, not that cookie cutter. I love it, man.
Well, and let me, I've spent a lot of time in my life trying to be something I'm not. And I think a lot of people go through that. I try to be the, for a while, I wanted to be the controversial guy, and I tried to be the, I tried to be the hardcore guy, or I tried to be this. And I'm like, and not just in radio, like in life, I tried to be things that I wasn't, or maybe acted in ways that weren't me, and I just, as time has progressed, you hopefully get comfortable in your skin, and if you're not, you find people that help you get comfortable in that, and find your voice in who you are. So I'm not trying to like lay here on the couch and have you guys go therapist on me, but it was, there were many rough nights, many rough days, shows that you get halfway through and you're like, this is terrible. But in that same vein, it's, if you're true to who you are, and, you're doing something you love, I think that passion naturally is going to come out. I really do. And it took me a long time to realize, hey, it's okay to be this passionate. It's okay to be this crazy person.
Well, man, Chris, I will tell you this, because I always say this. I told Dane this. It's always a pleasure. We respect family time. We know all those things. If you ever get a chance to travel to the area, because we'll be there. We'll see you in a few weeks at this point. If you're ever in Kansas, please come and call a game with us. I got you. I got a spot.
We'd love to.
I will treat you. I'll get you a steak and wine. I'll do the whole thing, man. I got you, man. So
I'm easy now. I just need water and electrolytes, and I'm good to go.
Let's go. That's all I got you, man. The steak and shake, I got you, brother. No, I'm kidding. So
there you go.
Chris, I mean it when I say, man, it's an honor. Like I said, it's a bucket list item. Dane and I always say we learn more than our guests. The sport's in good hands. It's an open invitation. I can't say enough. Please, I know your life is busy and you're working things around. Please consider sometime in the future. We'd love to maybe showcase your other show, right? We'll go through some time. Please let it be known that you're welcome to come back on anytime.
Yeah, thanks. So, I appreciate that, man. Thanks for having me, guys. It's been a blast.
Yeah, thank you.
Chris, we'll see you in a couple of weeks, man, at the games, and Boomer Sooner. We'll talk soon, okay?
Yeah, Boomer
Sooner, guys. See you, Dane.
Thank you, brother.
Josh.
Much love.
Thank you,
guys.
Have a good night, brother. So, Dane, I'm telling you, man, I don't know what to say. Like, I can't close that. Talk to me, Dane. Help me out here.
Yeah, I'm beside myself. Like you say, a page and a half full of notes, and you're trying to write them as small as you can. And like I told him, I mean, it's one of those things where, you learn, like he said, you learn from everybody. Something I've told my daughter this. You learn from everybody you meet. Take something from them, build on it, and your personality is going to shine through once you take all those lessons and apply them. So it's great to hear him say that. And he's really built a great brand for himself, and he's doing it for, I think, what you and I feel is the best possible place to do it.
Yeah, and again, we love all of you, and this will not stop. There will be no discontinuation. Please, I don't want to hear it from any of my Texas people out there. We love you all, but we're from Oklahoma, so we had to showcase that. That's our home, right? So again, many of non-Oklahoma shows coming up. We got KU even
Yeah.
coming up, Dane, which I'm gonna talk
Yeah,
about.
there you
But
go. All right.
there's just a hometown thing, man. And Chris, he's I'm telling you, he's cooler than
Yeah.
you. He's already cool. You see him, I listen to him, and it's interesting how different he sounds when
Yeah.
he's doing play-by-play. He gets into that mode. All right, I'm gonna just
Yeah.
get down to it. Do I need to do
Yeah,
play-by-play? Am I
definitely.
being color commentary? He can do it all, right? And it is a
Yeah,
job. I learned that
definitely.
even with you, even with us calling games, and it might be, a couple thousand people watching at a time. It is a
Yeah.
craft to doing play calling. I learned that from you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
learned how to,
Yeah.
I learned how to call positions. I learned how to tell who's up to bat. I learned little catchphrases like dingers and worm burners
Yeah.
and these things from you. It
Yeah.
is a craft to learn something from somebody else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
wow.
And like I told him, I took a lot of what he does and kind of
Yeah.
integrated it with what I do, more to the let your personality shine through. I mean, you can call the
Wow.
game boring as can be, or you can put something into it, put yourself into it, and it makes it that much better, and people enjoy it.
Wow.
So
Man,
anybody that wants to do them, then take it from guys like that, guests like that will show you the right way to do it. And it's exciting whenever you watch a master do what they do. So.
Master of his craft, man. I literally could have, if we wouldn't have had time constraints, I could probably sit there for 4 hours and talk to the guy because he's such a gentleman.
I would have listened to every story he had.
You guys, man,
enthralled.
I will make sure he's got a couple shows. I'll hashtag it. I'll send it out. We put it on YouTube and Spotify. You guys, please make sure you catch his show. It's the best thing on the radio. Well, we hope we are first. I'm kidding. No, but it's the best show on radio right now. I'm telling you, it's great content. Him and what he does. Obviously, I'm a little bit slanted as well because he comes from an Oklahoma standpoint, but I still think he's great. He could be calling games for bowling, and you'd love it. It's just great, So I'll send a link to the show. What a great night, Dane! What a great night. Has this week been crazy or what, Dane?
Oh man, so. and it rolls on.
Yeah,
that's what's great about it.
So we finished tonight with Mr. Plank. I wanted just nothing but Chris tonight, just an open mic for him. Tomorrow we've got a couple big ones, man. Talk about locally showcasing the community. Charlie stops by, Coach Charlie from the Nitro. I'm going to talk about her team and her Spin Tech program she launched. I got an awesome guitarist, Dane. You already know him. You're going to love him. His name is Aslan Freeman. He's playing with Lainey Wilson right now. You guys know the song Heart Like a Truck. She does one right now with Hardy called Wait in the Truck. A lot of truck stuff, right? It's pretty cool. And then we are also ending the night with Marquez, who came from K-State, now has his own program, actually his own league, if you will. He started an organization. Thursday, Dane, it just rolls on. We roll with my buddy Ant Jones from the band Seven, great metal group. We've got obviously Mr. Josh from Virginia Tech, Coach Josh, and Glenn freaking Davis is stopping by. I mean, it's been endless. It's gonna be a great night, man. And then we'll end the week with, of course, Bodarius from the USFL Michigan Panthers team, man. So crazy, So and as Dane said, we couldn't do without you guys, so I'm grateful. Dane, that was one for the ages. That'll be something I'll be racking for a long time.
You say, what do you say? Bucket list. Like you said,
that was a bucket list, man. Well, I am. Wow, it's probably late where you guys are, the East Coast or whatnot. So we will sign off for the night. I'm going to get to work on editing this one and get it to the staff. And that was a beautiful nightcap. So as always, don't forget that we love you. And Dane,
thank you for listening.